There's been lots of debate about Brandon Ayuk or about the 49ers taking a wide receiver at 31. I think you and I don't want to assume, but I think you and I both agree that this seems more like a smokescreen
Yeah.
from the 49ers putting pressure on Brandon Ayuk. I don't assume that they're going to go wide receiver at 31. And someone that you mocked at 31 that I I kind of hope they don't go him 31 just because I think it's a reach. And I think that the 49ers need to stop reaching for players. But
Yeah.
he does seem like a good player. And we've
He
briefly
is.
touched on his ties to the organization, which maybe is what influenced you to think that the 49ers could value him more than the rest of the league. Um, Rosen,
Garden.
Rosengarten. Um, you mocked him to be at the 49ers the first round pick if ever, if they stay at 31 and potentially nothing happens with IU so they don't have like a pick 20. Um and we've touched on this before, but he was coached by Ed McCaffrey, so he has that tie. And then currently is working with Joe Staley. Obviously, the 49ers think very highly of Joe Staley. At the last at least 2 years of training camps that I've paid closer attention to, he's actually gone to the training camps and been there. So I think he's, really likes to talk with the guys, and it seems like they
Sure.
value his opinion on these
Absolutely.
guys. So do you want to maybe tell everyone why you think that the 49ers might draft him? Because this is a bit early. A lot of people assume that he could be there in the second round. Why do you think that the 49ers would get him at 31?
I think that he's moved up in the draft now so that he's kind of pegged in between top of the second round to maybe the high 40s, that he would be somewhere in that window. So you wouldn't be able to get him in the second round is the point. In terms of why mock him, part of it is he's working with Joe Staley. Staley's close to the organization. He'll give them a lot of good feedback on what Rosengarten can do, what kind of person he is, a lot of things that you can get insight from someone that's been working with him as a coach that can give you, character, desire to play football, how hard he works, that sort of thing. You get a really deep download when you get somebody like that that's working with him, and someone that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan will value in terms of his opinion. Then beyond that, you get the Niners always being focused on speed. And Rosengarten was the fastest 40 at Indy, had a really good 10 as well. He's got good feet. He has pretty sharp hands. His hand placement's good. His technique is solid. The problem with him is his power. He only had 20 reps at Indy, and he got beat by power in the national championship against Michigan. So you have to worry about that component of it. But I still think that, and hi, Marco, that there's a lot that's happening there that indicates that Rosengarten is who they're looking at, especially when Lynch goes there for a workout by Rosengarten and
Yeah.
the other Huskies, and then also brings along Chris Forster, the O-line coach. To me, that says a lot about their intentions. So I think
Yeah.
that that's possible. But Marco's
Do you think
favorite,
that they could?
Kingsley Suamataia, came in for a 30 visit yesterday. So they're
Yeah.
looking at Kingsley too. And I think that that's due diligence on both of them to evaluate, okay, who do we do? Who do we pick and why? And who do we
I
think
love
is the
that they're at
best
least.
fit? And try to figure out where would they go in the draft and what kind of options do we have in terms of moving around? How late could we go before Rosengarten or Suamataia would go? They need to lock that stuff down and then figure out where they would make the pick. But I don't think that they could wait until the end of the second round where
No.
they've got their pick at 63. Those guys will be gone.
I was going to ask, do you think that it's possible they trade back, maybe not like far into the second round, but just back a little bit to still assuming that they're gonna try to target that play or target Rosen, but potentially if a quarterback needy team wants to get into that first round, because obviously you have that fifth
Yeah.
year option, or do you think? Because I don't really know, so this is just a question. Would the 49ers value having a fifth year option on an offensive lineman? I feel like normally
I
guys
think they would,
want
because
that
you
the
see
most for like
what's
a
going on
quarterback.
with Ayuk, that
Yeah.
you would want to have that fifth year option as a fallback if need be. And so I think that can play into it as well. Typically, we only mention fifth year option when it's a quarterback, but I think it can apply to anybody.
Didn't
But
they use
in
that
terms of
on
trading
McGlinchey?
back, there's a lot of options that they would have.
They used the 5th-year option on McGlinchey, right? Or am I
Yeah.
stupid? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Love that.
So trading back, they could. The Raiders would have a pick. I think they're at 44, and that would be ideal for going back to get Rosengarten there. If the Raiders wanted to move up into 31 to make a pick, but the rumor now is that they're interested in taking Michael Penix with their first-round pick.
He's actually really good. I mean, I haven't I'm not like a scout, but I've watched some things of him, and a lot of times his wide receivers were like dropping the ball, and I felt like he was making good passes. But I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that Penix has the best deep ball in this class. That he's really accurate deep, but he still showed some things, especially against Michigan, where he didn't get it done, and he's got an injury history, so there's a danger there. But I do think that Penix would be a great
But
fit
the Raiders
for
are
them.
like risky. I don't know. They might care
Yeah,
about that
they like taking those kind of gambles, and he's an Al Davis style quarterback. He can throw it intermediate to deep really accurately. That's something the Raiders have always tried to be, and Penix fits that.
Perfect. And then while we're talking about first round guys, I'm gonna let you pronounce this guy's name. I definitely asked you about it right before the show and I already forgot. Newton is a defensive guy who might drop to 31, you were saying, in your mock draft. So this would be a guy, if both Rosen and he are available, you assume the 49ers would go with Newton?
I would assume they still go with Rosengarten because I think
Oh, okay.
that's the way that they've lined things up.
Okay.
Because part of it is that you
They
also
haven't
look at
met
their.
with him, right? You said in your
They haven't met with Jer'Zhan Newton yet, no, but
yeah.
maybe they will. And if they do, then that'd be an indication that they're definitely looking at him at 31. I pay close attention to their 30 visits. Part of it is that they are looking at two guys, a defensive tackle that would go in the second. That Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State, and Brandon
Yeah, I have
Dorlus
that
from
guy listed.
Oregon. Both of those guys have come in for 30 visits now. And that would indicate the Niners are looking at second round to go defensive tackle.
Okay.
And so I think that that's why they go offensive tackle in the first round, is because that's what they want to do, defensive tackle. But everything depends
I,
on
as a fan,
what
would like
happens
that
with other
better.
trades. Yeah. Let's say they make the Ayuk trade and they get 51 from Pittsburgh. Then at 31, you could take Xavier Legette as your wide receiver pick. And then 51, you can take Roger Rosengarten. And 63, you can take Michael Hall Jr. I mean, you can just plug in people there. The other thing that I read into why it's possible the Ayuk trade's being made, they just invited in Kalen Bullock from USC, free safety. He goes at the end of the third round. And so if you wanted to bring him in, it's only because you would take him at 94. And so right now, their pick at 94 is probably a wide receiver. They brought in 3 receivers for 30 visits that all go late third. So I think their plan right now is wide receiver third. But if they trade Ayuk and then they go, Leggett in the first round, now the third round is open, and that's where Bullock would make sense as the pick at 94. And now they bring in Bullock. So it's another argument, albeit a reach on my part, to say he's an indication that they might be looking at this for real.
I like you putting the what is it, tea leaves? Is that what people say together?
Yeah.
But really quickly, will you give, for people who haven't read your article yet, will you give a little bit of background on some of these guys that you've highlighted,
Sure.
starting with Newton?
Yeah.
Just maybe why would the 49ers be interested in them? What are they good at, or what are they good at? What's their potential? Stuff like that.
Okay, well, we talked about Rosengarten. Michael Hall Jr.'s defensive tackle is really quick. He's got a great first step. He's very fast into the backfield. He's got good pass moves, and he beats his man one-on-one. He
like that, value that.
And yeah, they value speed, and he's got speed to get into the backfield and make plays. So he would be a pass rushing defensive tackle that they could use, that also is capable of stopping the run and disrupting a play behind the line.